Thank you to all readers and listeners who believe in change and building a better world and society.
So I wanted to talk a little bit in this episode about just not really per se about the background of the book or my background or anything like that, like what I usually talk about in these sessions, but I really want to speak to people who are considering buying my book, or you found this podcast and you don't really know what's going on with this book. This book is pretty special, not just because, every author thinks their books are special, right? It's kind of like parents with their kids. Every kid's special, right? I get it. But I think it's because it's more than just a story, and I've talked about this in previous sessions, but I really wanted to impart lessons to readers. I didn't want to just, write an entertaining story. To a lot of authors, that's all they want is an entertaining story that you can kind of pleasure read and get lost in, and you can get lost with these characters for a couple days, a couple nights, whatever, and then you're done with the book. You had a good time, you feel good. That's not really the intent that I had for writing this book, and maybe that's turned some of you off from the book already by me saying that, but really this book is meant to be a vehicle for a lesson, for several lessons, for informing people about where we're at as a species, where we're going, and what we can do to change course, and what we can do to improve ourselves. And without spoiling stuff in the book, I'll just say there's a lot of macro stuff in the book. There's stuff about evolution and transhumanism and things like that. But then there's also like micro, you have the heart and soul of the story. And when I think about it, it was a challenging book to write because, you got these big picture lessons that I wanted to include. But then, of course, you got to have a coherent narrative that, at least I think so. It didn't have to. The book doesn't have to have anything. But I wanted it to have a coherent narrative that readers would want to keep reading to get exposed to those lessons. And that's one of the first reasons why I think people should read this book. That's the title of this episode, is why should people read Cereus Limnic? Well, the first reason they should read it is to learn where we're at and learn where we want to go as a species. And when I look around, I live in the U.S. in California, and of course, I'm recording this. It's still COVID-19 pandemic, over 400K deaths. I just can't believe that, that it's been so devastating. And I'm talking about this because I feel like I've seen kind of the turn to cynicism. I've seen kind of the lack of empathy that people in general have. It's kind of like if you didn't have COVID, then, or if you had COVID, like I'll be honest, I had COVID. Like I got COVID, and at the very end, like Christmas time, I was sick, and fortunately I got better, but some people don't get better. And that's just one example of the kind of humanity that we deal with on a daily basis that sometimes we forget. We get so wrapped up in our minute to minute lives of, social media. I got to go to work. I got to take care of my family, and of course I do that too. We're all busy, but we forget about the humanity. We forget about these external forces that are pushing on us to cause us to act differently than we would have otherwise acted. I mean, i.e. COVID, like all of a sudden there's this mysterious virus going around. You don't want to get it. And then all of a sudden You don't look at people, you don't talk to people, and I know many of you have probably struggled with that. I struggle with it every day. I mean, I attempt to teach math, ninth graders math every day, most days on Zoom, and it's very difficult to connect with them in a meaningful way, let alone get them to do their homework, right? But just to connect with them can be very hard. And I feel like as a collective society, I hear a lot on the radio and online about this collective trauma that we're experiencing right now especially here in the United States, because we've been hit hardest by COVID. But as a species, right, we see this kind of carnage unfolding. I don't want to say carnage. That makes it sound so terrible. We see this, the tragedy unfolding, and there's not really much you can do about it. You can't just go over and help people. I guess you can just do your job, and that has to be enough. But I guess I'm ranting a little bit to say that I feel like we need a little bit more humanity sometimes, and that's one of the big reasons why I think readers should take a look at this book. And my hope is that, because I tend to be a deep reader, and most of the people that I know are deep readers. And when I say deep reader, like I read between the lines of things. I don't just read the words. Of course, they're words, but I read, like, why did they write this? Why did they include this? Why did they phrase it that way? Like, what is the theme here? Like, where's the symbol? I guess I'm taking cues from my old English class. Like, we always talked a lot about archetypes and symbolism. I remember when that was one of my favorite classes in high school with Mr. Kunder back in high school, because we were forced to not only learn about these different things, but to think about why would an author insert these things into their work. And it's for a reason. Now that I'm an author, which is incredible, like a fiction book, yeah, there are certain themes and symbols that I put into the book for deliberate purpose, hoping that readers would pick up on that. And I really hope that readers, because the Cereus Limnic is kind of a layered story, because it's got some flashy parts. It's got some parts that are clearly meant to pay homage to, like I've talked about, Chinese dramas, anime, video games, JRPGs, American military movies. It's got some of those elements in there, and those are the parts that I feel like are gonna, I wanted to make that sound that they keep putting in the YouTube videos, wow sound, that like it really, like, oh, okay, that's gonna make people like, oh wow, this is kind of a fun read. But I hope they dig a little bit deeper and get to where I'm trying them to get them to, which is the meat and potatoes of what I'm trying to convey, which is these specific lessons. And I keep saying lessons, and because it to me, it's hard for me to write something that it's just pure entertainment. It's really hard for me to do that. Like, to me, there has to be a purpose and a goal of the writing. And for me, it's speaking to different issues, because that's kind of the way my mind works. I was talking to a fellow teacher a couple of days ago, and I told him, I was like, I was just kind of always brought up, and through, like, when I was young and through the military, of course, to where I was in the mindset, if there's a problem, I was expected to come up with solutions, or at least have solutions. Solutions, of course, they're not always going to work. I'm not always going to have the right answer, but I was always very solution minded. And as I've gotten older and been exposed to more of the world and things happening, I think about, how could we solve that problem? How can we make it better? Especially things that, you go home and you complain to your significant other about, or to your friends about. Those are things that, yeah, we like, it's always fun to vent every now and then. It can be therapeutic, but I think we should be working towards solutions to these real problems, big problems, that we're having. COVID being the main one on my mind right now, because it's still out there. but there's other problems too that predated COVID. Like you still have inequality gap, you still have wealth gap, you still have people are exposed with healthcare. To me, the loss of humanity. I keep going back to humanity because it really is hard to talk just about nations nowadays because everything is just it's so connected. You can't really, it's hard to separate, yeah, there's people that are Russian, that are Chinese, that are French, that are British, that are American. Yeah, sure. And of course there's cultural differences too. But I think more than ever, more than any other time in human history, we are directly connected to each other and we can see the connections. We can go on social media, we can go online, we can go on YouTube and watch videos from all around the world. I know I do that regularly, learning languages and things like that. So I guess I don't really have much more to say on this episode, other than if you are a solution-minded person as well, if you are looking for a reason to believe in change, to believe that things can get better, not just for your individual situation, but for, society at large. Because I feel like that's where a lot of people are at. They're like, my situation is good. For the most part, you've got what you need for you and yours. But a lot of people around, like on the macro scale, it's kind of messed up. And there's things that we can do about it. But I think sometimes we just need a little bit of a push. And I think that's what I'm hoping readers get from reading Cereus Limnic.
Music for the Cereus Limnic podcast was provided by Ryan Fonger. For more information about Cereus Limnic, visit keithhayden.net and subscribe or follow @kh_author on Twitter. For future episodes, subscribe and follow the Cereus Limnic podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, as well as the Amazon Music app.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that episode of why I think people should read Cereus Limnic. Of course, the book is officially launched now, and if you've been a long-time listener of this show, again, I want to thank you for listening and supporting me as I've been figuring this all out, as I've been learning marketing and just kind of, spreading my wings as far as writing this book and getting it out there to you. And now the book is available. This is going to be until the end of January that I have this launch code that's available. This is a discount code to where you can purchase the e-copy of Cereus Limnic from my website directly. I think the e-copy costs $6.99 on there. So if you put this code in, you'll get a $2 discount, which is not a bad deal. A full book for $5. Pretty good, brand new. The launch code is CLLaunch21, or I should say the promo code. It's CLLaunch21. You're going to put that in once you finalize your order on my website, keithhayden.net. And speaking of keithhayden.net, you can go there to find all the information about Cereus Limnic, about where you can get it. It has links to samples. It has links to a sample of the audiobook. It has links to a sample of the first chapter of the book. You can go there and subscribe to my website to get those. And you can also buy the book from retailers. You can buy it from Amazon. You can buy it from iBooks, Apple Books, whatever. So it's up there. So it's available worldwide. And I'm really excited for you to read it after listening to 15 episodes of me going on and on and on about these different things, and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Now you can go and find out for yourself, and I really hope you enjoyed the read. Take care.